Family is the block, an important block of human society. Families together constitute the society, and they have to remain integrated, and the relations between them have to be good, cooperate with each other, try to solve each other's problems, and remain integrated. So the source of the input for the market, society, and the government, the family. And the society, human beings live in societies. And if the society is not right and does not try to help human beings, there can be a number of problems. The government must look after the well-being of the people and try to ensure that their needs are fulfilled by facilitating the operation of the market and the economy. It may also have to undertake itself a number of things that cannot be undertaken by the private sector. And we come now to the mechanisms for allocation and distribution. There are three very important mechanisms. One is filtering. Filtering takes place in conventional economics. The only filtering mechanism is the price system. If you have to create equality between supply and demand, if the demand is high compared with supply, you raise the price, demand comes down, supply goes up, and the two become equal. But filtering within Islamic economics goes beyond this. The price mechanism is very important, but the equilibrium has to be at a point which is in conformity with the goals of the society. In conventional economics, you have supply and you have demand, and this the point at which both meet is Pareto optimum. Supply and demand, there is an equilibrium, and this every equilibrium is a Pareto optimum. But not so in Islamic economics. Only that equilibrium is Pareto optimum or Islamic optimum, which is in conformity with the goals of the society. So filtering, that's why we have not just the price system as a filtering mechanism, but also values and social structure. Motivation, the only motivating mechanism that conventional economics considers is the serving of self-interest. If your self-interest is served, you will be motivated, and no other motivating mechanism is considered. But socio-economic and political restructuring, so the economy and society and politics have to be restructured in such a way that the well-being of all people is realized. We have to create a proper environment to enable people to live up to their values. Now let us come to these mechanisms individually. Filtering. The only filtering mechanism in conventional economics, as I said, is the price mechanism. They take tastes, preferences and values as exogenous variables. These are not discussed. Tastes, preferences, values of the society or individuals, they are exogenous variables and not discussed. Why? Because these require value judgments, and value judgments are out of bound. So you do not take into consideration these, you just take them as they are. In the supply and demand graphs here, conventional economics takes into account the total demand and total supply. There is no consideration of demand for needs and demand for luxuries, because this will involve value judgments. Also supply, not the need fulfilling supply, and the luxury supply of luxury goods and services. Status symbols and ego satisfaction. There is no distinction between these. Total supply, aggregate supply and aggregate demand are taken into account. But this is not the case in Islamic economics. You have to take into account demand for need fulfilling goods and services and the demand for luxury goods and services. And also the same way is supply. And for this purpose you need two filters. Price filter by itself is not sufficient. It is very important but not sufficient. There has to be a moral filter. Before you even go to the market, you filter out things that the moral filter does not approve. So you apply the moral filter before you even go to the market, and then the price filter comes into effect. So whether you want to eat more bread or more rice may probably be determined by your taste as well as the price prevailing in the market. But the moral filter has to be taken into account in the Islamic framework so as to eliminate from the aggregate demand a number of things which are not approved morally. Now, what will be the implications of this dual filter? You can see in this graph there is demand and supply. D1 is the total aggregate demand, including both essential need fulfilling goods and services and luxury goods and services. You have to cut the luxury goods and services, and the demand curve moves to D2, and you can see that as a result the price goes down and the claims on resources also go down. So if the claims on resources go down, then naturally there will be resources left for the fulfillment of needs that have remained unfulfilled in the conventional system. So the purpose of the dual filter is to cut the use of resources for luxuries and waste for goods and services. Now how are we going to motivate people to do this? Serving of self-interest, this is there. I mean, you cannot deny this. Human beings like to serve their self-interest, but Islamic values try to mold self-interest in a certain way that it also serves social interest. Not like Adam Smith, that if you serve your self-interest, social interest will be automatically served. No, you give emphasis to both. Do not condemn the serving of self-interest, but you try to mold it in such a way that social interest is not hurt. So moral urge, one of the motivating mechanisms is the moral urge, the concept of hereafter, to serve our self-interest not only in this world but also in the hereafter. In other words, if I fulfill all my obligations, social obligations in this world, then I am serving my self-interest in the hereafter. So if we want to serve our self-interest in the real sense, then we have to serve our self-interest not only in this world but also in the hereafter. And the serving of self-interest in the hereafter requires that we fulfill all our social obligations. Socio-economic and political restructuring. This, of course, may not be possible unless there is some socio-economic and political restructuring. Now, the societies nowadays have become oriented towards status symbols and showing off. If you live in a society like this, it may be very difficult for us to avoid status symbols. If you do not use these status symbols, people may consider you to be misers or give you some other kind of titles. So we have to change the social outlook of people and to make sure that they appreciate. In other words, a person who avoids luxury goods is considered to be better than a person who indulges in luxury goods. And a person who resorts to show off is considered to be not a very good person, but one who does not do this receives greater respect. A person who arranges the wedding of his son or daughter and spends luxuriously for show off, doing a number of status symbol things, then he should be looked down upon, and one who does not do this should get greater respect. If this is achieved, then it would be possible to use resources more meaningfully and fulfill the needs of all people in society. The government has to play an important role in this. If the government tries to curb in different ways the use of status symbols, this has been done to some extent in our societies, like imposing higher rates of tariffs or import duties on luxury goods and no tariffs or taxes on need-fulfilling goods. But because the social restructuring is not there, this does not work. People don't mind paying a higher price for a status symbol because it gives them a certain value. But if the society starts considering those people to be of a lower quality and they are not unable to get respect from their friends and relatives, then of course they will try to change their behavior.